Joining us right now is from the Truman National Security Project is Mr. Nathan Gonzalez to help us understand what's going on. Thank you so much, Nathan.
Thanks for having me, Montel.
Yeah, he's a fellow of the Truman National Security Project and author of the book Engaging Iran, The Rise of Middle East Powerhouse and America's Strategic Choice. Well, what's America's strategic choice now? It appears that this country is going to be mired in, or will these protests continue, or will the government just clamp them down?
Well, that's really hard to say at the moment, and the ball is really in the court of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. We've seen Iran obviously had a revolution just 3 decades ago, and Iran has had a history, in the last 150 years of revolution and mass social movements, and it really always comes down to the government response. If they crack down too hard, they might get pushed back to the point of no return. But if they don't crack down enough, they can lose power as well. So right now you can bet that the supreme leader, who himself is a revolutionary and knows the power of crowds and the power of unrest, you can tell he's trying to weigh his options and see at what point is pushing too far and at what point he needs to push. As for America's response to that, it's a real sort of bind that we are in because, for the last 8 years we have aligned our interests with those of the Islamic Republic, both in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so it's not like we can just easily isolate Iran again if we want our troops to come home safely and soon from Iraq. It's one of those really difficult things where we could find ourselves doing what we did after the Tiananmen Square massacre in China in 1989, which is basically not say too much at all and sort of stay out of Iran's internal problems.
And right now, those internal problems don't seem as if they're going to come to an end very quickly. It seems like, if you're looking, we're getting news here probably 7 to 8 hours behind, but there are still protests. They're calling for a large protest in the streets today in Iran. Do you think that this will have any impact at all, or will the government just crack down and say that, Ahmadinejad has been, duly elected and everyone has to get in line?
Well, development that just happened a few hours ago was that the supreme leader has his body, the Guardian Council, has said it's going to look into allegations of voter irregularities. So there is some semblance that the top echelons of the government are trying to avoid a confrontation, because for a while we've been seeing the language and the rhetoric become increasingly angry and confrontational, and we could see still an escalation of what's going on. But I think there's a recognition that if they continue to say that this voter turnout, which is around 80 to 85%, that it's simply worthless and they're going to blatantly throw it away, they really have a potential, and I'm not exaggerating, a potential revolution on their hands, just based on what we've seen in Iranian history. Last time there was a revolution, it lasted over a year before the Shah was taken out of power in 1979. So this could be the very beginning of a revolution, or this could be something that just the government cracks down or otherwise compromises with the people like Mousavi, and the tone goes down.
Is Mousavi's life in danger right now?
I think anyone who is in politics in Iran, should not be able to get a life insurance.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Do not qualify.
Don't qualify. If you're in power in Iran, you don't qualify for life insurance.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a dangerous place to be in politics. And Ahmadinejad's failure to answer that question, we can read many ways. We can say, well, he's trying to be above the fray. He takes insult at that question and therefore doesn't want to answer it, or he's really trying to intimidate his rival, or both, And we know that, in Iran, things are often, meted out in this way, and people end up dead or under house arrest or in exile. So anything can happen.
How will this kind of play out, Nathan, or what do you think is going to play out over the next couple of days?
Well, I think the next couple of days are crucial, There are two things that could happen. On the one hand, the Supreme Leader could take the bold step and declare the elections invalid and have something of a revote or something of that nature, which in and of itself would be a very bold move, and at the same time very unlikely in the sense that it would bring into question his judgment of the past 3 days. At the same time, if he decides to stick with his guns and declare the election valid and say, you guys are out of luck to the reformists, we could very well see an escalation of this, and over the next few months, we could see something of revolution-like proportions.
Well, right now, currently there are reporters that seem to have been arrested. They are squashing any information that's coming out. Reporters for Reuters said that some of them were beaten by the police. So a lot of this information that we're seeing right now, we don't know whether or not it's either real or it's been so squashed down that we're not getting full reports out of Iran right now, right?
That's correct. And there's a lot of speculation. The BBC has recently stated that religious militias have been authorized to use live ammunition on crowds. Not sure where that information came from, if that's true or not. We do have a lot of, thanks to social networks and the sort of technological savvy of the Iranian youth, we do get a lot of reports through YouTube and through blogs and Twitter, etc. So we are getting some information that's streaming out of Iran, and the information is generally that you have two camps. You have the reformists, and you have the hardcore supporters of Ahmadinejad, the more rural, religious types of voters. And then in the middle you have the Ayatollah Khamenei, who wants both sides to calm down, and he wants to keep control over his country, which becomes increasingly unlikely as things escalate.
Montel across America.